The United States has just launched Operation Epic Fury against Iran. Reports say hundreds of targets connected to Iran's military and missile infrastructure have been hit, and tensions in the Middle East are rising fast. So the question everyone is asking right now is this: why did the United States launch Operation Epic Fury in Iran? Tonight, we're going to break down what led to this moment, what we know so far, and what it could mean for America and the world. As Christians, moments like this remind us how fragile peace in our world can be. Scripture tells us to pray for our leaders and to pray for peace. So tonight, we are also going to talk about why believers should pray for our troops, for wisdom for our leaders, and for the safety of everyone caught in the conflict. Welcome to Faith and Freedom, the conversation. We're going to start tonight with Caroline Leavitt's press conference from this afternoon and her update on what has happened so far in the conflict. So I'm going to add here, and here we go.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Under the leadership of President Donald J. Trump, the rogue Iranian terrorist regime is being absolutely crushed. 47 years of tolerating and enabling the world's leading state sponsor of terrorism are over. Iran's murderous terrorist leaders are paying for their crimes against America, and they are paying in blood. Since 1979, the terrorist Iranian regime has actively and intentionally facilitated the killings of Americans. They chant death to America and fund other radical terrorists who attack our country and are seeking to destroy Western civilization itself. These terrorists seized our embassy and took 66 Americans hostage in Tehran. They slaughtered 241 U.S. service members with a truck bombing in Beirut. They killed and maimed hundreds of American service members in Iraq. And this is just a small fraction of their blood-soaked record. Prior leaders have been too weak and ineffective to address this threat. Some, like Barack Hussein Obama, even sent pallets of cash that ultimately financed this terrorist crusade against the United States and our people, while signing stupid and naive deals that put Iran on the path of developing nuclear bombs. After years of endless appeasement and empty statements from politicians on both sides of the political aisle in this town, President Trump is finally the man of action. President Trump is holding these monsters accountable and permanently extinguishing their nuclear ambitions. Future generations of Americans will look to this moment as the moment where the specter of a nuclear armed Iran ended. At the beginning of Operation Epic Fury, launched last weekend, President Trump laid out clear objectives to the American people on what the U.S. military seeks to accomplish through these major combat operations. Number one, destroy the regime's deadly ballistic missiles and completely raze their missile industry to the ground. Number two, annihilate the Iranian regime's navy. And so far, we have destroyed more than 20 Iranian ships, including their top submarine last night, using a torpedo for the first time since World War II. There is not a single Iranian ship underway in the Arabian Gulf, Strait of Hormuz, or the Gulf of Oman. Number three, Operation Epic Fury will ensure the regime's terrorist proxies in the region can no longer destabilize the region or the free world and attack our armed forces. And thus far, Iran's proxies are hardly putting up a fight. Number four, this mission will guarantee that Iran can never obtain a nuclear weapon. It's safe to say that thus far, Operation Epic Fury has been a resounding success. American forces have struck more than 2,000 targets, destroying hundreds and hundreds of ballistic missiles, launchers, and drones. As the Department of War said this morning, we expect to have complete and total dominance over Iranian airspace in the coming hours, clearing the skies for our brave warriors to continue achieving these noble and long sought-after objectives. There's been a lot of misreporting and intellectual dishonesty from the American media on why President Trump decided to launch this operation. So let me remind you, Operation Midnight Hammer, which took place last June, obliterated Iran's 3 major nuclear sites. Yet the terrorist Iranian regime has remained fully committed to rebuilding its nuclear program. How do we know this? Because Iran has pursued this path of war and violence despite President Trump dispatching 2 of his top and most trusted negotiators to engage in exhaustive and good faith negotiations to try and reach a deal. And the world knows this president's preference is always peace and diplomacy first. Look no further than the 8 additional global conflicts he has ended in the past year as proof. Unfortunately, the terrorist Iranian regime refused to negotiate in good faith. They chose this path of violence and destruction, and they are reaping the consequences of their horrible decision. The regime did what they always have done. They lied, they delayed, they tried to string the United States of America along. They wanted to buy themselves time to continue building ballistic missiles and other deadly weaponry that could harm our U.S. personnel and troops in the region, and to continue aggressively pursuing their unacceptable nuclear ambitions. U.S. negotiators offered to lift crippling sanctions on Iran and even provide nuclear fuel to Iran at no cost to support a civil nuclear power program. They additionally had the opportunity to accept U.S. support as an investor in potential projects to develop peaceful nuclear energy together under a mutually agreed upon framework. Yet in response, Iran would have to forfeit their enrichment capacity once and for all. But Iran rejected. They accepted none of these generous and unprecedented offers by the United States. Simply put, they refused to say yes to peace. And their refusal made clear that their number one priority was building a nuclear weapon with which to threaten the United States of America. Again, the country they have been chanting death to for nearly 5 decades. Let me state this again clearly. Iran rejected the path of peace because the terrorists in charge of this regime wanted to build nuclear weapons to use against Americans and our allies. President Trump made the determination, a courageous determination and decision, that the path the United States was on with Iran had only one outcome: massive death and destruction at the hands of a nuclear-armed terroristic regime. That path of death and destruction and threats against the American people have ended with Operation Epic Fury. Operation Epic Fury has forged a new path that will better ensure the security of the United States and our people. The terrorists made a bet that President Trump would be like many of his predecessors, that he would just talk and he would refuse to enforce his clear red lines. But that has proven to be a catastrophic error in judgment. When President Trump makes a threat, and I have reiterated that threat many times from this podium to all of you over the past year, President Trump does not bluff. The president's words are backed up by the mightiest warriors in the world who possess the most sophisticated capabilities this world has ever known. 49 and counting of the most senior Iranian regime leaders, including the supreme leader, have already been wiped off the face of the earth. Make no mistake, killing these brutal terrorists is good for America and makes the world a much safer place. I want to also extend our prayers and condolences to the families of the 6 U.S. military service members who have been lost in Operation Epic Fury. These heroes represent the very best among us. They laid down their lives in defense of our country, and we will never forget their legacy or their sacrifice.
So there you have it. So based on that, now that we understand what Operation Epic Fury is, LaTanya, do you think this operation was unavoidable at this point, or could this conflict with Iran have been prevented?
Right. Well, I have a better understanding from what Caroline Levitt was saying, how it appears that they tried to come to something with this regime, and excuse me, and they rejected it all because of the leadership, the person who was in leadership. They rejected it, and the path, from my understanding, was to peace, to try to, like, okay, this is what we can work with, but because of the regime that they had, he didn't want to have nothing to do with that. And so my understanding is that these that part of the world in that country, they do not like the United States or its allies. And I personally saw videos where it was like death to the Americans,
Mhm.
using such language as the little Satan, which is Israel, the big Satan, um,
Is
America.
the United States, yeah.
Right, the United States. So this is a part of the world where these individuals, they make no mistake. I'm not getting, it's like saying the Iranian people, but their
They're
leadership,
leaders,
their
yeah.
leaders. And of course, yes, it could be some citizens who may feel some kind of way, but it's their leaders. And so there
Mhm.
was, I mean, there was really no negotiating. So it wasn't like what I'm getting and understanding of this. This is my first time hearing this, by the way, that it wasn't like, oh, the narrative that could be spent off of this, that, oh, President Trump wants to go and pick wars. No, these
Mhm.
people were actually getting close to where they could have something that could reach over here.
Right, exactly,
And
exactly.
so that was something that had to be addressed.
Yeah.
Us as Americans, we have gotten so used to the comfort and all of our wars being fought abroad. We're not used to fighting in our actual country uh,
Mhm,
against other people, like a lot of other countries,
mhm.
unfortunately,
We
have to
had
deal
to.
with.
Yeah,
Yes.
what comes to mind for me is, because we've had the open borders for the last 4 years of Biden, and, all these people that came over, we don't know who they were. We don't know. And a lot of the people that were reporting on people coming over the border, they were fighting age, military aged men.
Hmm.
Um, so we don't know who's in our country. And they say there's been 3 incidents since Operation Fury started, Epic Fury started. The shooting in Austin, Texas, that happened Sunday, I believe it was,
Hmm.
that killed people. They're finding that he had ties to terrorism. He was wearing the Property of Allah shirt.
Yes, I saw
He
that.
he had a Quran in his car. So there's some connection there. And by the way, right now, I'm not saying all Muslims are Islamic radicals. I'm not saying that. But in Iran, the leadership there, which actually started, we've been dealing with this since 1979, when the Ayatollah took all those hostages, and under President Carter's administration, and they were hostages for 445 days or something like that. But the day that President Ronald Reagan was sworn in, they were all released because he was a stronger president. And I know that President Trump has been talking about the issue in Iran for during his first administration, but in this last year, and giving them time to stop the nuclear production of nuclear weapons. And that was the Operation Hammer, Midnight Hammer, where the bombers went in and bombed the facilities a few months ago. And now this. And he even offered them immunity if they would stop. And now some of the leadership is still wanting the immunity. And he said, no, it's too late. It's too late. So, um,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's hard, um, of what's going on over there. It's because It's our Navy. We don't have boots on the ground. So there are two battle groups over there. There's the Gerald Ford Strike Group and Abraham Lincoln Strike Group that are over there. That those aircraft carriers are the ones that are housing the planes that are going over there and dropping bombs, and our destroyers that are shooting missiles over into Iran. So this is a war of the Navy. I'm a Navy mom. This is unnerving to me, but I know it had to be done. Do you know they threatened to kill President Trump twice? Khomeini did twice. You know, you don't do that. You don't do that. So, yeah.
So, do you think this operation had been planned for some time, or do you think it was more of a response to recent events?
What I know, and the precision that it was just like the operation to capture Maduro in Venezuela, with the strategicness of the operation, they had to have been planning it. They had to be ready for it. I wouldn't say they were planning to do it on a such and such date.
Right.
I think if talks didn't produce a good result, then something else military had to happen. And the funny thing is I was watching Jack Hibbs' message on Sunday morning about everything that had been going on. And the funny thing is the Islam does not follow the same calendar that we do. We follow a pagan calendar. It's the Roman calendar, actually, that we follow. Whereas they have their own calendar. So the CIA knew that the Iranian leaders were going to meet yesterday. We're supposed to meet yesterday on Tuesday. But then they found out for some reason they moved their meeting up to Saturday. Well, Saturday was 9/11 in the Islamic calendar, September 11th. And Islam, from what I understand and what he had said, and I encourage you to go watch it, is that when Islam is attacked on a date, they have to counterattack on that same day. So when Osama bin Laden told the terrorists that flew the planes into the World Trade Center and into the Pentagon, is that if they couldn't pull it off on September 11th, they had to wait. They couldn't do it on the 12th. They couldn't do it on the 10th. It had to be the 11th. And there was some attack on Islam on the 11th. So that's the reason why they had to attack on the 11th. So was this an act of God that the meeting got moved up to take back 9/11? Or was it just a coincidence? That's my question. Is God on the move here? Is God trying to, bring peace back into the Middle East? Because it's, I don't know. I have to think about that.
That's very interesting. That's very interesting. So, I know I asked you that question before, but do you think this military action is meant to prevent future attacks, or could it actually increase tensions in the region? What is your thoughts on that?
Well, with the support of the allies around there in the Middle East, Israel actually led the attack. United States didn't.
Right.
We partnership with them and we gave them support, but Israel was the one that actually attacked first. So Israel needed the support. Their issues with the terrorism and everything that's going on with Iran. Iran's funding Hamas, the Houthis, Hezbollah, all of those terror groups are being funded by Iran. And, Biden gave Iran, what was it, $10 billion that Trump had taken away from them. During his first administration, he had taken that money away. Biden gave it back to him. So what did they do with it? They funded these terror groups. What did they do? Hamas attacks Israel, on October 7th, 3 years ago. So Iran needed to be dealt with because they were evil. Those leaders are evil. And they want, and there's a lot of radicals out there right now, Islamic radicals out there that want to take over the world. Look what's happening in England, in the UK, in Europe. They pretty much become an Islamic nation. Where they, the prayer music is spouted out over loudspeakers through the cities 5 times a day, just like they tried to do in Dearborn. What is it, Dearborn, Minnesota? The same thing. And I don't know, I haven't looked, but Texas just had a bill on their in their election yesterday to stop Sharia law in the state. Because there's communities in there that want Sharia law. Well, Sharia law is awful. And one of them is women have no rights at all. Under Sharia law, you have to wear those burqas. You can see, your eyes. And basically, I heard one report say that Islam looks at women as animals for sex toys. That's it. That's all women are. And there's pictures out there that show women before the attack, all dressed in their black burqas, and women after that are free and dancing in the streets. This had to happen to free people. There's been an uprising in Iran of people protesting against the Ayatollah. They wanted this. And they recently, President Trump said, stop killing your people, stop killing the protesters. And they promised for a few days, and then they started up again. They killed 30,000 of their own people for protesting them. Recently. 30,000. To me, that's genocide.
Yeah.
That's awful. No,
Yeah.
they're an awful regime. They needed to be taken down. So, LaTonya, what kind of response do you think Iran might take after something like this?
Well, I think that it's going to slow them down for a little bit, but I do think that they see what is possible. And also the thing is, President Trump, he only has 2 more years left. And so if another president that's not a conservative, maybe on the Republican side, like if it's, I don't know, because I can't say just because it's another Republican that how they will feel about this, but I think it slowed them down. I think it did a lot of deep damage, but I do think that they're going to try to come back. Absolutely.
Yeah.
This has only bought time. That is only, and depending on, I think, who gets into office and if they carry on with trying to make sure that things are not so quickly rebuilt or whatnot, then it's just going to push it back.
Right.
later
Right.
than sooner. But because I know how Caroline, she made the statement and said so that it could never. I think did she use the word that they could never rebuild or
Never
that
rebuild a nuclear weapon. They have to
right.
agree to that. Yeah. There
So
is talks that Khomeini's son taking over leadership. And I'm like, why would we allow that? He would be
right.
just the same as his father.
Hmm.
They're taught from an early late age to hate the United States, death to America.
Hmm.
So, that to me doesn't sound like that would be a good idea. And from what I understand too, is pretty much the supreme leadership has been killed, all of them. But from what I understand is that they have levels of leadership. So if one level gets taken out, then the next level gets taken out. The next one will rise up. That one gets taken out. Another one will rise up, and it's like killing heads of snakes. And they just keep rising, growing back, and rising up. This evil, and it turns into, okay, what does the Bible say about this, and what are we as Christians supposed to be doing?
Right. What I during times like this, what I think about, for an example, you did earlier, you expressed about being a Navy mom, and
Hmm.
no doubt how the impact and that is, even though you know that, yes, our sons and daughters, they signed up for this, and thankfully, we're not a country that has been in wars where we've had to use our military that much like that. But if and when the call to duty arises,
Yeah.
uh, it's just like how you express in your heart. It's like, oh my, just how you feel about it. So I think during this time, just as scripture says, how we are to pray for our leaders so that we can live a quiet and peaceable life. I know some people, they say, well, in the end times it's going to be this, it's going to be that. I get that. That still doesn't take away to still pray, because what
Mhm.
is going to transpire is going to be how God has it to be. But we still should pray for our leaders, pray for President Trump, pray for his cabinet, pray for Pete Hegseth, pray
Mhm.
for Mark Rubio, because he goes out and pray for them, because there is only a one United States. There
Mhm.
is, I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
there's an only a one. And if you and make no mistake, there are people that they don't care what side of this you're on, all the things that is bickering and whatnot. You can disagree on different things, but when there are people that are saying death to America, death to, then I mean, think about this, people. What are you going to do? People who are
Right.
in this country who do the things that they do and wouldn't dare do it in their country because they know what would happen. They are
Right.
trying, that's why there's leaving their country, because they're trying to come to a country like ours. And then yet they're saying these things that are just, my goodness, agree or disagree on policies. But when it comes to talking about annihilating the country, and like you mentioned, we're not blanketing saying Muslims, they're all, but the
Mhm.
radicalness of Sharia and etc. And on another broadcast, I know we'll go more into that
Yeah.
and talk about that. It is from the pits what happened. And if you're a woman, you really should
Mhm.
be like, wow, it is, they dare not unwrap themselves.
Right.
It is horrific, people who were in that, and when they come out of it and the testimonies, if they come out with their life. So
Right.
I
Yeah.
moving forward with this, as we are all trying to, like, what, be on top of it, we need to be praying. and definitely praying for our troops, praying
For
for our
their protection.
for their
Psalm 91,
protection.
guys. Pray Psalm 91. They dwell in the secret place of the Most High, you know,
Exactly.
and their
Yes.
enemies fall at their side. And that's what I do for my son is,
Yes.
that's my prayer for them,
Yes.
all of them, actually.
All of them.
So,
Yes.
um, so before we close, Latanya, you have any final thoughts, other than, what you just said, praying and all of that? And
Yeah. I'm really thankful that we got the right person in office.
mhm,
I'm
me
really
too.
thankful because this kind of stuff is not easy. The decisions that President Trump having so many different people talking in his ears. And then when he make the decision, he knows that there are going to be could be possibly life taken, maybe
Mhm,
not. And just so many things I can only imagine.
yeah.
So
He's
so
got a tough job.
he has a job. So I for me, my takeaway, or and not just takeaway, but that pray for him, pray for his cabinet, pray for the troops, and pray for their families.
Mhm, yeah. Thank you. Thank you for that. So we want to hear from you. Do you think Operation Epic Fury will stabilize the situation in the Middle East, or could it lead to greater conflict? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. If this, if you find value in this conversation about current events through a biblical lens, please like, subscribe, comment, and share this video so more people can join in the conversation. With that said, thank you so much for joining us. God bless, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.